have this in place rather than now I'm running around with somebody's got a permit and is requesting permission to use, and we may or may not. We, right or wrong, this is how the city handled medical marijuana. We didn't feel we're prepared. We knew they were coming. The city took action on that. There was a request after the fact for a specific location downtown, and we were able to say, "Oh, well, we're sorry." Not that you always will, but we felt the beginning. So I really went into a little bit of stuff about it. At the end of the day, the Ohio Revised Code clearly states that a city may, as stated on in their F, that the city, any city, municipal corporation, county, township, or any division has the approval. You can completely and totally ban them. We can regulate or prohibit the operations. F1. The legislation that Joe wrote up is pretty standard, and I should have caught the fact that the first whereas would need to be modified. That's not really fair for us to say has become a public nuisance. I would change that word to, I'll get called on that because that's everything I do is, wrong. But that I should have caught that. That would be changed to fear they may become, or desires to not allow them to become a public nuisance. They're not here, so that's not a good word. And it was actually Corey that caught 376.01A. If you really read that, technically that could include bicycles. So that's why Corey pointed that out, and Joe added B, just because. So we think outside of a minor amendment to that first whereas, council gets this in place at their first reading would be at their second meeting in July. It means it'd be official in August. And then you're covered for the future. I think they being laid. You look at the stretch, this first block right here, between Paxton's and City Hall. Could you imagine these e-scooters laying there? People are going to trip. And not to mention, we have a priority, and I think the city takes it pretty serious. We have a priority to maintain ADA regulations in the city, and we do a pretty good job with that. So obviously that would be out the window with these kind of things. We'd never maintain ADA. So feeling it's pretty standard, sort of another softball, but we do have some bigger things coming.
Questions, discussion?
Yeah. On 37601, you've added a human-powered bicycle should not be considered. Should that be broader than bicycle? I mean, do you want to prohibit some little kid on his two-wheel scooter going down through there? Is that?
I don't know what would be the right wording.
Or skateboarding for that matter.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what would be the right wording on that.
I was thinking that exact thing, John. I think after bicycle, you need to add something to the effect motorless scooter or motorless scooter or even skateboard again.
Okay.
Like John was saying, I didn't think about skateboards, but that's another thing. That's the first thing that came to my mind.
They still do that?
Kid on a scooter. But that's the first thing that came to my mind is, what about scooters?
Scooters, skateboards, kids on rollerblades.
Yeah. We'll define that in what we take to council in a better way.
Yeah. Sorry. Well, part of it's taking care of is handlebars. It has to have handlebars, so.
That's true. That is true. Those say handlebars.
Okay.
So but the non-motorized scooter would still be potentially in it.
See, that's why in A, I still think there's a kind of a problem with subpart A in that that parentheses after handlebars, paren,
right,
is propelled by an electric motor
or human
power. You can still change that up a little bit because, you've got electric motor in there, for example. Do you want? I've seen those scooters with little gas powered like lawnmower engines on the back of them. I mean, they're not the lift or they're not the leaf or whatever those are, but I don't want those things motoring around either, right? So if you can just take the word electric out of there and just put motor.
Yeah. Yeah. So we take out the word electric. I'm not really good. I have to type, but B would be broadened, but a little more broad.
A little broader. I would take the word is and change that to can be, because you have well, let's see. What was I thinking there? I don't know. I just think it makes it a little broader because not all of these things are necessarily always powered by the motor. They have motors, but you can
Right.
scoot on them without motoring.
Right.
So
The different brands, that's how you begin by pushing like a regular scooter, and then it starts to go.
so
that-
maybe can be as opposed
Right.
to is.
Capable of
Right.
being-
Because you don't want somebody scooting around with one with a motor on it saying, "Oh, you can't get me. This is
Right,
not
exactly.
motorized. I'm scootering it."
Exactly.
And I assume you don't want even the non-motorized ones whipping down through there.
No, I think you're accurate. We're trying to do anything that would maintain safety, both vehicle and pedestrian safety.
Right.
As you know, it's getting more and more snug.
Well, I will say generally, I think this is a very good idea because I work just like Miss Bailey. I work downtown, and these things are a disaster. They would be terrible here. It would be just
absolutely.
an absolute disaster.
And if they came in tomorrow, I would hear, why didn't you take care of them?
Right.
So I salute Kathy because she sort of keeps me on the straight and narrow with all the balls that we have in the air. So this was something.
Well, if you walk the streets or you walk the sidewalks downtown, they'll be in your head because you can make all the regulations you want. People will not follow them.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know of peer communities that have banned these things?
Smaller communities like the city of Loveland are banning them. Larger communities are trying to create these zones where they have to be returned to. They're working with Lime and the other company, Bird, and they're making them have to be turned off at a certain time by the computer. They just die on you when you're driving them. None of that's really working because people as a whole are just going to dump them and they're not going to go back to that square. And then if you don't have enforcement, 37 years I've been doing this. Any rule without enforcement is a waste of that rule. So it's putting a rule in place and not being able to enforce it. This is easy to enforce. We're already seeing a greater police presence in the downtown district. It's priority one with my new police chief. Made that a priority throughout the interview process that we want to keep adding that. So you're going to see more and more officers down there. Again, this little bit of paid parking area that we have, which is seen as a gift to our restaurant owners because they know that if Jessica is coming into dinner and she's going to dump $200 at Tano's, she don't blink an eye to spend $5 here. Well, it isn't worth a hill of beans if we're not handing out tickets. So, and we do, because so that again, this is easy to enforce. Putting a stripe and saying all vehicles need to be returned near the dumpster at City Hall is a waste of ink. It will never be done. So anything we can do to make this comprehensive, that if the police see any of these things down there, they go, "Sorry, those are banned." So, the wording, my goal when I come to you guys is have this so there isn't much modifications. We don't.
Well, Dave, it looks like that was pulled right from the Ohio Revised Code. So
Yeah.
I do have a question. So I work downtown too. So when I see these devices, they're scooters. But ironically, when I was pulling in today, there was two people on what I thought was bicycles, but they weren't. They were motorized. So we're talking about those as well, right?
Yeah. Those all fall under the LSMD, the low speed micro mobility devices. But again, the city does this. We get a little publication for doing this. Now people are challenging it, like what you guys are trying to correct. So that would be the next step.
Let me ask this question. Assume that somebody uses a mobility device because of their medical conditions. Where does that come in?
Yeah.
Somebody wants to use a little scooter to scoot around, and it's a medical device.
Wouldn't ADA cover that?
I would think so. I would think it would mandate they'd be allowed to do that.
Yeah. With the proper
But I think you have to. Do you have to address that potential exception?
probably.
I mean, there's discretionary application of this.
Well, I was just thinking. I mean, what officer would ticket somebody for clearly using something?
Brian, you know better than I do.
Well,
Could you put that under
I-
usage and restrictions and just add after roadways, just put in less medically
required.
necessary or something.
Yeah,
to that
with
effect?
but the problem with that is how you define what that is.
I think they have to. I think that typically comes with some kind of.
Right.
Sticker.
Although not, I mean, if you think about the type of motorized vehicles that are not vehicle, but motorized, almost like wheelchairs, whatever, that are like at a Kroger's or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can imagine someone having one of those. Although, again, I know what you're saying, John, but I can't imagine an officer saying, you know what, that's a motorized scooter.
We actually have a couple of people utilizing those in the Heights.
But does
on-
those things don't they got to be pretty heavy, aren't they? This says less than 100 pounds.
They've got to be heavy.
I would assume.
Even
I
the
don't know. I would
batteries.
assume. Yeah.
I think Corey said the same thing. Those wouldn't call because they all weigh more than 100 pounds.
Are you trying? Are we? What's the thought about these electrical assisted bicycles? I mean, there are bikes that have an electrical assist. You can pedal them and then coast longer.
They're on the bike trail on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I see them on a fairly regular basis. Older couples. Just saw one the other day when I was at Nisbet.
Does that fall under human powered bicycle?
They are human-powered bicycles.
Okay.
Well, I think
Unless they're not. I mean,
I think we have time. I'd rather have Joe here and help us with this because those are the things I'm seeing more of. I don't see any of typically a lot of what you see downtown, but I did see a cute older couple the other day, and I thought, well, isn't that nice? Because I rented one in Breckenridge, and I thought, whoa, those are nice. They were just looked like a couple out on a bike ride, but I could see because I rented one in Breckenridge that that's where they were. They were, they weren't on the sidewalks. They were on the bike trail. I sure would like to know that I'm doing the ADA thing correct by the time I take this to council. Just, boy, I don't like going down that road, messing that up. And then,
and you don't want to get something where somebody says that older couple on the electric bicycles. That's
who just went there and went to Ramsey's for lunch.
right.
And parked it in the bike racks. They
Right.
did. I saw them. I wasn't stalking them or anything. I just sort of happened to be walking back to City Hall while they were going that way. I'm not like that guy. But we were going to meet again relatively soon because Kathy had we wanted to address some issues in some of the council rules, and she thought it'd be better for law and order to look at them, especially because you have Ted on here, and Todd knows his stuff backwards and forwards too. So, so if you want, I can clean this up, but I looked for other communities. They're all just grabbing this and throwing caution and they're not digging into it like you guys are. So that means I couldn't find any samples from other communities in my Google searching. So
I'm sorry.
I think you're right. My two biggest concerns would be those electric assist bikes that people are buying, and I don't want to be outlawing those on the bike trail. Goodness gracious, I'm not causing a problem at all.
I think
And the amount of money as they pay for them, and they're privately owned, they're not being dumped in the middle of the thing. And I think there's probably a sentence that would show that we're being considered to ADA requirements that someone's having a scooter. Because I would think that there's something. There's probably some.
If you look at 451101, that's the more broad definition of what a vehicle is for the traffic laws. And the way it deals with the wheelchair issue, it says vehicle does not include any motorized wheelchair, any electrical personal assistive mobility device, and then it goes to other things. But that's the way they describe it in that. I mean, that might be
That sounds like
that's perfect. Yeah.
Who's that?
451101. It's just a definition
Okay.
generally of what a vehicle is for the traffic laws.
Yeah. Well,
And
Why
I'll
not-
just, if I can throw, that your picture here on packet page 4, it's of electric scooters and electric bicycles. So what I'm suggesting, if you want to make an exception for electric bicycle,
but they're privately owned. That I feel like there should be something
Well,
for the
but that's just it. It's the vendors though that do both.
Right.
So
Mhm.
yeah.
commercial.
There are people that do that. And actually, what I was about to point out as well is the same section defines an electric bicycle as a vehicle under the Ohio Revised Code. So it's even broadly defined as a vehicle, more broadly than what we're talking about. But that's exactly right. I mean, if you say just these scooters, but you don't include the motorized bicycles, you could have the same problem.
And
What if you-
the other thing I'd throw out there is I could see the day where maybe these would challenge regular bicycles, and we've got vendors of regular bicycles, so it would be hurting them to.
What if the guy at the bicycle rental place is right at this very moment meeting with his partners, thinking, "Man, it would be nice to rent those electric." I rented one in Breckenridge. Wouldn't it be nice to rent those electric assist bicycles? Well, there's not going to be left across the sidewalk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're restricted. I almost feel like there's certain things given the bike trail that we could permit on the bike trail that we wouldn't permit on a sidewalk.
Well, you could. He was saying make them privately owned or not
Make the-
commercial.
Yeah, my concern is ODNR rules the bike trail. What are their rules? Because I thought electric bicycles were prohibited.
Okay,
think
well,
electric.
why don't you just let me clean it up a little bit? I mean, that's not my goal with these, but I also know that this isn't something that no one's come to the city right now and said, can I
Right.
apply for a permit? And we have a lot of power under that. But I also know that if I let it happen 6 months from now, I'm going to be the
Mhm.
dumbest city
I
manager.
think the consensus of the committee would be we're sympathetic to the notion that we don't want the commercial.
I think most
Right.
importantly, we don't want the picture on page 5.
Mhm.
And that was an easy picture. There's a lot worse than that.
Mhm.
But
Today, I had to move one just to walk to my office. I mean,
well, and also our
yeah.
Your assistants are using them up and down the hallways?
No.
and our
So you are.
our sidewalks are nowhere near that wide.
Right.
So, well, I know what we need to clean up, and I'll get with Joe, and then I think Corey was just sort of putting something on your plate
Mhm.
for you, just because P&Z is sort of starting that process. But I'll let Corey take over with that. But so
So you're thinking the electric bicycles may be handled differently than these scooters?
I
and so
called
forth.
my contact with ODNR. He's my bike trail lady, and I'll get that question answered because that's a big factor because that's the number one. And I see this going towards things that are restricted on city public right of ways because the bike trail is not considered a city versus things that are, I think, to really make this comprehensive where they'll say, wow, that law and ordinance committee didn't just simply adopt the same thing that everybody in Ohio is adopting. They used the fact that they're a little more unique with a bike trail going for the heart of their town and that they want to be seen as encouraging because that cute little old couple wasn't causing any harm.
Mm-hmm.
But see, those green things are not what we want.
Right.
So
All right. Anything else? I guess we'll see it again. Thank you.
yes.
Moving to item 2 on new business, which is mobile food vendors. Dave, do you likewise want to Tori tee this one up?
Thank you, sir. With regard to the mobile food vendors, just to give the Law and Ordinance Committee an update here. So, really, there's two parts of our adopted ordinances that regulate these things. We have Section 732, some fairly vague licensing, permitting procedure requirements, talks about some exemptions for special events and things. And really, the meat of the regulations are contained within the Planning and Zoning Code for the city. Currently, they're regulated as special exceptions. So what is a special exception? It's neither an approved use, it's not really a conditional use, and it's exactly what they say it is. Special exception process requires a public hearing, and those are permitted in several of the business districts, the historic district included. So why are we talking about this? Well, during a recent special exception, there was considerable and robust debate about this. How should we be regulating food vendors, mobile food vendors within the city? Acutely in the historic district, but also more generally throughout the city. And so planning and zoning is really embarking upon, they're sort of at the infancy of this, embarking upon a process by which we'll, I think at the last meeting, they requested that staff set up a working session, which we will do after so it'll kind of fit between council meetings and after the regular August meeting. We have a case on a unrelated conditional use in August. But we'll have a work session to solicit public input, because I think for the committee's benefit, it's hard to know if you don't know where you're heading. You can pretty much go anywhere, right? So I think it's important to dovetail in 732, those regulations and any potential modifications to those, so that they're lockstep with regard to really planning and zoning code is going to take the lead on this, because that's who, what, where, when, who, what, where, when, or maybe who, what, where, when, and then 732 is more who and how, to a certain extent. I mean, it's sort of an oversimplification to that end, but I think that, at the end of the day, we really need to dive into it. We're thinking it's going to be August 16th. We need to look at, really have some community input. How does the community want to see these things regulated? I think there was some considerable discussion about, the regulations are sort of fraught with, there's a continuum, as you all know. You can either completely cut them off, or you can completely deregulate them, or you can be somewhere in the middle where you limit time and placement, time, number of days per quarter. I mean, it's going to be a pretty complex discussion, I think. So I just want to provide the committee with that. Just kind of, this is just something to chew on, no pun intended here. And, in that regard, then the zoning commission will kind of take the lead. And you may look at 732 and say, well, these regulations are pretty vague, and there may be a tweak here and there. We don't have to do much. But if planning and zoning comes up with something very different than our current process, then there may need to be some additional regulatory framework. So I just think it's important to link the two.
And this is much more than the downtown district. That's the focus of it. We can see food trucks as the city is embarking on a pretty significant revitalization of the Loveland Madeira Road district. Right now, for example, the old Johnny's Car Wash is going to be turned into this really unique brewery. And I could certainly see that guy maybe for a month here, a month there. Want to put a food truck up there to, I've always thought that you could see food trucks in the Commerce Park, serving. That is our own it's a little city up there that we have in our industrial park. So this is not just about downtown. Seems like that's the focus of it. But I think I have a lot of respect for Tom Carroll, who's the city manager here. Because I think he was a really big thinker. And you say what you want about the downtown, whether you like it or not. Loveland Station really was the start of it all. And that was his project. But when Tom really wanted to do this downtown, this was a completely different downtown. And he was trying to help kickstart things and get some more interest. So he would have already probably fixed what we're trying to fix, knowing where we are now. But we also know that Shoppers Haven has some chances. You got events like a home show. If you've got the Home-orama going on in October, I'm not saying this will all be fixed, and you're encouraging people to park at Shoppers Haven, and they're going to be shuttled. I think if I was the owner of Shoppers Haven, I'd get a food truck out there. So there is a purpose for them. We're just trying to get that purpose a little more defined. And it's a big thing, and I'll give the Planning Commission kudos. They're attacking it. They're bringing everyone in, inviting everyone and everybody, from the guy who owns the Dairy Whip, from the guy at the Chili Hut, the new place out. He's inviting them all in, and we're going to really try to tackle this. We're not banning them, but I think it's going to go. The problem is that I didn't overly enforce the couple that we had, and so that sort of started the bad trend. So Narrow Path's going to be invited in. I think we've already reached out to Ben, though he's sort of finished with his. So Corey just thought that we put on your plate, because 732, we always look at the green book like this, the big green book. If it's land use related, it goes to P&Z. That's their job. If it's pretty much anything else, it comes to you guys. And so they're dealing with the land use. 732 will be your baby. But you really sort of need to see what they do first. But I think anytime we can give you an advance notice of it, all the better. That's what Corey and I thought we would do. Sort of tee it up for you a little bit. That's sort of where we're at. They're taking their times, because I don't know if Corey did this. I was listening, but after they pass the last special exception for the new hops and berries downtown, you did say?
Well, it's in the memo.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. As he said in the memo, that council directed me to direct staff to not allow any more applications for a special exception downtown. So we got breathing room, so to do this right. And I don't like it when you saw it with these e-scooters. It's better to take your time. So he's just putting it on your plate.
Yep.
That was really.
So what is the issue? That there's just too many.
We don't.
You
We're seeing
anticipate a proliferation of them.
the issue would be, and with all due respect, because I have a lot of respect for the gentleman, a business owner who happens to own 2 restaurants in downtown. And his point, as he stood here, and I really respect this gentleman. I'm not going to say his name because it's not relevant. But his point is, it's not fair. It's not fair to the people that have built the kitchens, that have done all the things. His position is, if you would have came to us in today's world with the apps and all the things, man, we could be running food over there 24/7. So that's that side of it. The other side of it is, we're a new business. We're hops and berries. We're a new business. People love your Dora. I mean, that Dora has been it really has been a win for the downtown district. They want the beer and they want to be able to go, but guess what? They're hungry. So there's the two sides to debate, and they're both good people. Don't get me wrong. I think the world of the guy that owns Ramsey's and Paxton's, but he stood there and was pretty, as he used the word, robust. That was an understatement.
So, and I attending these meetings, the point was, or the question that came up during all of this was, is this food truck doing an end around on these bricks and mortar? Because the bricks and mortar have to have a kitchen. Hops and Berries had to have a kitchen. Oh, we'll just bring in a food truck. Oh, we'll bring in 4 different food trucks, rotating. And it's like, that's kind of goes against the exception. It's now becoming the rule. So that's where P&Z's asking that, should there be, say, go back to when the original downtown licenses were established, of you had 2 for the entire district for 1 year, or do you narrow it down to 2 per quarter, 3 per quarter, hours of operation? I think the question also was with like Bearded Pig, that thing was parked there versus a food truck is supposed to be out of here every night. Doing some research, Cleveland has an incredible set of regulations that you might want to look at. And they have zoning, different zones, they have fees, they have exceptions such as like festivals or nonprofits are exempted. They discuss, hey, what happens when, say, Pheasant Hills has a block party and they hire Loveland Dairy Whip? Well, that's a food truck. What's the rules for residential zones? And so that is included in the chapter. It's chapter 241. It's known as food shops.
Yeah, it's all encompassing. It's not just downtown.
Yeah, and it was a rather eye-opening. The
guy that owns the Dairy
legislation.
Whip, he's a wonderful guy. You see, he bought the property behind there. He keeps it not a thing. It's clean as whistle. But that's part of what he does. People have birthday parties, and he comes up, and what better birthday party? The guy comes up with an ice cream truck. I just don't. I guess I'm just not that guy. I don't want to be that guy that says no to everything. But I sort of agree. As P&Z sets the plate, you guys come in with 732 and with the regulations that state obviously you want to make sure that there's Board of Health stuff, and certainly I'm sorry that I keep talking about these things because I've been around forever, but I remember working in Delhi, and they banned flashing. You remember the signs, the flashing signs, the changeable letter signs, because somebody spewed one across the public sidewalk and somebody got electrocuted. And I was a young college kid doing zoning for Delhi Township, and there was no ifs, ands, or buts. They were banned. And I remember going to this woman's house, and it was in her front yard in a subdivision, and it said, "Congratulations, Karen. It's a boy, it's a boy, it's a girl." So her daughter had triplets, and she was really happy. And she put the sign in her front yard. Well, here comes this young whippersnapper, snot-nosed kid. I go, "Hey, congratulations." She goes, "I know. It's great. She had triplets." She's in tears. I go, "You got to get rid of the sign." No, I mean, right now, I literally cannot leave your house until you unplug it and move it. I mean, there's factors involved, electricity and things like that. That's really where you guys come into play. Well, I had to sit there, wait till she moved the damn thing. But I mean, we don't want to be those people. So, and that's when the fire chief's really good with that safety stuff. The Board of Health, even though we're in Claremont County, Hamilton County, Warren County. Hamilton County is our Board of Health for the entire city. That's a smart thing that Tom Carroll did. We get all the Board of Health for one person. So a home down on the railroad is a mess and bugs are crawling out of it. Hamilton County's down here. So those people can be very helpful to make sure that everything is in place. So so he just wanted to tee that up. We just decided we're going to tee that up. And
Well, just thinking about food trucks when they became a thing. I mean, I associate them with people that followed the carnivals or the church festivals, and they would just drive up, and they were indeed transient, and temporary, and then they'd move on, the next day or in 2 days, whenever the festival's over, to the next place. And now things have sort of changed where there's some really good food trucks that have upped their game and they make good money. It's not
And they
just
have a
selling
regular
hot
kind of
dogs.
route they follow.
Mm-hmm.
Locations.
Well, or what the things come to here in Loveland is they establish themselves here.
Yeah.
For
Right.
8 months, 10 months, 12 months a year.
Where they become a restaurant. A heart restaurant,
Mhm.
eventually.
Yeah.
And I think that was kept the guy that owns Ramsey's point was we've invested in 2 restaurants with full kitchens, all the codes that are required to maintain kitchens. We should do this. And so we got to find that line. And they got the tougher of the 2 jobs. I think for you guys, you're just going to make sure that everything public safety is really in play. I like to think our new police chief might be helping you out a little bit. He'll be here August 1st. I would see him sort of sitting here with you guys, offering you coming from Kettering. Kettering does a lot. I think he'll bring some insight to us. That's sort of what we're trying to do with the staff, sort of widen it up, have more people involved. So hopefully, his name's Michael Gabrielson. I think you'll really like him. It only took me 18 months to pick one, but I think you'll really like him. But he seems really wise, and this would be something that he would help us do. So we'll just sort of leave it at that, Ted. I think at this point, and
Yeah. If anybody else
I think
has
what
any-
Todd pointed out is some good reading for everybody. Remember, at any point in time, you go to the city's website and just click on all of our codes, and it's pretty good software. And then I don't have my calendar, but is there a set meeting date that you would like for me to stick to? I mean, this is a Monday. I know 7. I've learned one thing: 7 is your desired time. We don't typically meet a lot of Tuesdays because those are sort of council and P&Z. But Mondays and Wednesdays would be the 2 days you guys would like to focus on, right? Thursdays, people got long weekends, and
Yeah, I frequently leave town on Thursday.
so if I can send you some dates on Mondays and Wednesdays, and I won't ask you, it'll make it 7. That's me being selfish. The 6 o'clock thing. We'll keep it at 7, and we'll look at Mondays and Wednesdays for you guys. And by then, I think we'll have Joe back. I need Joe on the council rules thing. I was going to Misty come. Misty is my assistant to the city manager, and she's also the municipal clerk of the year. So when you give her a task, such as something like this, she reaches out to this incredible network of clerks throughout the whole state of Ohio and came up with some really unique things about how people can address council, how maybe some priority we'll give to city residents, and how much time, this thing, for those of you not attended a council meeting, this thing counts down from 5 minutes. And it has to do with that. And how often are we allowed to let somebody come and give long periods of time? So that's sort of what we're working at. But I really would like Misty and Joe to be here. And Misty just had another meeting, and Joe is in Ohio Township tonight. So that's on your plate too. I probably in the meantime will just send you a packet of council rules so you can see them. There's a lot of other things that are coming your way. So good things, I think.
And when is the P&Z public meeting?
We think that it'll be the 16th.
Second Tuesday in August.
The P&Z regular meeting is
First Tuesday of the month.
First Tuesday of the
And
month.
council's second, so it'd be the third.
Be the third Tuesday.
That's why we sort of avoid Tuesdays.
16th.
Council is the second and the fourth. P&Z's the first. Third's an opening, but like this would be filled. That's why you guys will be Mondays and Wednesdays.
Yeah, no, I just would encourage it if you can come, do it, just because it'll help us in our ultimate dealing with this issue.
And then I think that's it. So I'll send some dates. I'm leaving town on Wednesday, but I'll maybe send some dates for it. So I'll be back, and then hopefully I'll get this all cleaned up on the mobile things. I'll have talked to my contact up at they work out of Cowan Park. I'll give her a call and get some feel for her. No reason for us to do something that's contrary to what ODNR already has in place on the bike trail. The problem is our police don't overly enforce that thing. But I think hopefully you're really going to see more and more police officers in the downtown district. We're hiring more officers, and I think you're going to see more. We just hired a chief. We're hiring an assistant chief, and we're hiring 3 new police officers because we're doing another SRO. So it's really like 2.5. So I think you're going to see more and more officers coming in. They're all young. They're all so young. So hopefully that's a big change. This city council is really committed to 2 things. They're committed to a lot of things. Money in your roads. We're at 1.2 million this year. We're at 250,000, 300,000 for years, and hiring police officers, getting that force in. Now we got to keep them. So those are things that you're starting to see. We had a $200,000 carryover for last year. We're spending 1.4 million this year on roads. Not to mention what we did on Main Street, which wasn't even part of a road program. So, I really commend them. So, well, thank you very much for your guys' time, and
All right.
try to utilize this to the best.
Actually, there's one item that you might want to consider down the road. Being a little proactive. We're discussing e-scooters. Let's discuss golf carts and commercial use, especially vehicle for hire. Because I think with downtown and if Shoppers Haven fires up and seeing shuttling, I can see this becoming a trend. And so we might want to look at that. Also, I've seen this in Milford, where they have caution signs, golf carts on road, and I think that we may be seeing that in Loveland coming up.
I just met with somebody who wanted to do a shuttle type service. They see the area by the East Loveland Nature Preserve as sort of an untapped parking resource. But the reason why they often don't work is I can't cover them for city insurance. I just can't. We're part of a pool. What we do affects every city in the city that's in the pet pool. So that usually is where I lose them once they start realizing what they need to do from an insurance standpoint. So they want to be basically a type of Uber type of thing, but specifically picture a circle around downtown and you being able to sit at your house and go, I want to go downtown. This guy comes to Victor, drops you. The concept is great, and we are willing to help you, but I can't insure you, and that's where I lose them. I'm 2 for 2 with the last 2. I've lost them because I'm not able to insure you. They're not city employees.
And they're not able to come up with the money that it would cost to insure themselves.
The last proposal was $24,000 a year for the insurance coverage alone. If the downtown businesses, ultimately, I don't know if it'll be during my time here, but I've longly wanted to do a SID, which is a special improvement district in the downtown district. Each business, based upon road frontage, will pay into a fund through an assessment, but they control the board. Those are really popular in northern parts of the state because they bring them in. They bring in people to shovel the streets. A SID in Loveland could be really beneficial to help with better utilization of our smart city. As a city manager, I would be more than willing to let the SID procure all the advertising capabilities that could come from smart city if they're willing to cover the monthly expenses and the maintenance of those, because that's an untapped resource, the smart city way of downtown. The SID is really could be beneficial. I don't know how often I get calls from downtown businesses asking for me to have crossing guards at the thing from pretty much May through August. That's an expensive endeavor, but the SID could pay for that. So we're trying to do it, but I went from a fire where I decided it wasn't a good timing to a pandemic, decided it wasn't a good timing. So now I got Corey. I think we're going to tackle it in 2023, do a SID. They're very popular. I've traveled around. I met with mayors in Sydney, Troy, Piqua. They're like, these things are great because they're paying for it. But then they have a voice. If it's a 5-member board, Corey and I are 2, and 3 business owners are 3. It would typically be Corey, the finance director. Here's your assessments. Here's the money. What do you want to spend it on? So it's a great program. So I think the SID could help with some of that. The SID could get their own insurance. SID could help sponsor. SID could go to Tanos, say, why don't you have your name on the scooter for a month? Why don't you have it? I mean, Nashville's doing it to a whole different level, but it works. But how do you do it correctly? As I think what Todd's saying, it's going to be in front of you at some point. Somebody's going to finally get enough of the resources involved, and it's going to work because people will park at Shoppers Haven and hop on whatever device is going to take them downtown.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and God love these younger kids. My son being one because he's a police officer. But man, they're all over that Uber stuff. My hat's off to them. They're going out for a night of drinking. They're using the Ubers and they're not driving. Well, their shuttle service in downtown Loveland would be a hit. Right up to the point they realize I'm not paying for the insurance and they can't afford it. But sooner or later it's going to hit. So I agree with Todd. It's going to be here before you know it. So.
All right. Well, we'll be seeing that perhaps in the next few years now.
Well, thanks again.
Anything else? Anybody want to move to adjourn?
I'll move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.